You're going to be asked to evaluate what's going on with generalizability within a content analysis study. This is something that some students have trouble with, and I think this Grey's Anatomy content analysis is a really good example for thinking through what generalizability actually means in content analysis. Whenever you're reading a content analysis, you want to be thinking about what population can these findings legitimately speak to. That's not what's the topic. It's not what was the unit of analysis. It is what population can we generalize to? What can the findings claim? And the answer in content analysis is going to be determined by what type of sampling was done, okay? So it doesn't even really matter what the topic is. It really matters what the sampling is. So in this Grey's Anatomy study, this was a census of 15 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. Every time that organ donation or transplant was mentioned in seasons 1 through 15. That was 95 episodes. So, although organ donation in TV shows or entertainment media is a cool topic, we can't generalize what these authors found in their study of Grey's Anatomy to other shows like The Pitt or medical shows generally or entertainment content generally, because that's not what the sample reflects. So this is super important. We also need to remind ourselves that in content analysis, all we know is about what's going on in the content. We are describing content. We do not have any sense about audiences. So, for example, there's a finding: Grey's Anatomy overrepresents heart transplants compared to the real world rate. So sometimes students will jump to the conclusion, so audiences must be confused about organ donation. That may or may not be true. But this study can't tell us that. That is an entirely different claim. In order to make claims about audiences, you need to do a survey or an experiment or something else, but not a content analysis. So the authors in this study are very careful and they have a lot of caveats, so that is good. So just to kind of go through some examples here. Quasi-case studies. You do every single episode, like in this Grey's Anatomy study. Single source census of content. You can make a claim about the show based on how they sampled. If you do a comparative case study, let's say you do Sopranos versus Mad Men versus Breaking Bad, and you talk about mental illness portrayal. You can generalize to those three shows, depending on how you sampled, but not on entertainment content more broadly. Now, if you did a big N cross-sectional study and you used probability sampling to pull a random sample of shows, on, let's say that shows that were on network TV in 2026 in the evening, okay, and you pulled a random sample, then you can make some claims about mental illness on primetime network TV in 2026 was portrayed this way or that way because you did a probability sample. But if you didn't, you can't. And you still have to keep in mind what exactly you sampled from. If you do an overtime study, you can make a claim depending on your sample. If you do a quasi-experimental study, you can make a claim about before and after something perhaps, but you still have to think about what your sample was. Generalizability really comes out of design and sampling in a content analysis. So be really, really, really careful about what you're claiming. And sometimes some authors, like especially new authors that haven't done content analysis before, might sort of creep into making claims about audience or making broader claims than they actually can. Don't get into that and don't believe it. Also, I just want to point out that even though these studies, content analysis studies, often have very limited generalizability, that doesn't mean that they're not valuable. While this Grey's Anatomy study isn't telling us about medical dramas in general, or TV in general, or entertainment content in general, we do know remember from the broader purpose that this is an extremely popular show. It has been for a long time. And therefore, there is value in trying to study the way that it's portraying things. Because even though this study can't tell us about its influence, we know that it might be influential. So in a good quasi case study like this, you're going to be trading generalizability for internal comprehensiveness. It's not speaking to a bunch of sources, but it's speaking deeply to one. So it's not that this means that this is bad. It means that it's just giving us something that's a little bit different. So that's generalizability, and it's important to be thinking through.